Hey team, welcome to Benchmarked. Thanks for joining us today. Coach Mess here along with my co-host, Coach LaRock. Today we're pumped to have an amazing guest with us, and I'm going to turn it over to G for the intro.
Do you say amazing every time? I'm trying to
I
think
love
about
the amazing.
We say
I
great or
I cannot use the word elite.
If I listen to a bunch of podcasts and everyone's amazing, I do not want this there.
that's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. I'm like,
Super amazing
before. Super amazing. We're going to pass this by the English department and see if it flies.
Yeah.
So today's guest is born and raised Northern Ontario in Sudbury, attended École Secondaire Catholique L'Héritage in the Flower.
Yes.
in the Minnow Lake, the big minnow.
That's right.
Was fortunate enough to have an athletic scholarship to play down Alabama Huntsville, played some pro hockey, opened his own business in London called TPH, Total Player Hockey, and now is moved around and now working with an NHL club as a player development coach. But what's even cooler is he's a father, husband of two awesome kids that I'm probably going to have to raise through a podcast because I don't know what kind of job he's doing as a parent, but luckily he has a great wife in Jenna.
Yeah.
Dwayne Blais, everybody. Dwayne Blais.
How's it going, guys? Thanks for having me on.
Appreciate you joining us. Must be
I just
pretty busy.
I just got to hammer JG on one thing though. It's total package hockey, not total player hockey. That's totally fine. That's okay.
But do you ever see that like you ever see that in advertising where they screw it up because then people really pay attention? Like
that's
you
why.
got double.
It. So if anyone's not sure, just check out totalpackagehockey.ca.
I could just see. I know this is going to be a good show. Just starting off good. We're already throwing the chirps at each other. This is good.
Yeah,
this is good.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Hold on, and this is brought to you by Bic. Bic is the official sponsor of this podcast for tonight.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
I'm good.
Okay.
Hey, wait, hang on. They haven't sent us any money, so forget that.
Touche.
No free ads, buddy. No free ads.
Yeah. Dwayne, it's awesome that you're with us. And even though I like giving GG a hard time, this is good. I got somebody else to join in on it with me.
Yeah, exactly. We'll get all over them for sure.
So are you in Detroit right now, or are you back home?
No, I'm in Detroit. So we going on JG's intro, I ended up taking a job at the Detroit Red Wings this year. So it kind of happened like in August. It was really quick. So just to give a bit of background, I run skill development stuff in London, Ontario, and we've worked with a bunch of players, young players, like 3-4 years old, all the way to NHL guys, and it's been awesome. And previously to this, I worked with the Washington Capitals, which was unreal. But I was able to travel in and out, so I'd live in London and then I'd fly to Washington. For the first 3 years, I was just in Hershey, which is their AHL team, so I'd work with them with the prospects, and I'd fly out to where they're playing junior and go skate with them and meet with them and watch them play and stuff. So I did that for 5 years. The last 2 years of that contract, I was up at the big club as well. So I was kind of flying into Washington and working with the guys there, which is really, really cool. And then COVID hit, everything kind of went weird. So I didn't renew a contract with Washington after when COVID hit. And then I was trying to focus on our business. And as anyone in Canada knows, especially Ontario, there was a lot, it was tough. There was a lot of school closures, rink closures. It was a bit of a mess. So with all that, I stayed in London, obviously, and just try to kind of work through that. And then this past August, Detroit had called. They were looking for a skill coach to come in and help out with the team. So originally, when I got talking to them and went through the interview process, I thought I'd be able to travel in and out of London, which would have been great. And that's kind of what we did before. It was fine. My wife was good with it. And then as we went down the process, they kind of said, yeah, but after we kind of got to know you, whatever, and the role we want, we'd like you to be here every day. So we'd like you to, you can commute, but it's a 2-hour drive, there and back every day, which would have been a mess. And so we'd like you to move here if you could. So that was a whole different conversation with my wife and my kids. And, but everyone was on board. My wife was like, let's do it. It'll be a cool experience. So we moved here in September, and we've been here for the year so far. And it's been awesome, man. It's been really, really cool.
You're lucky you got an East Coast wife, man. They're the best.
All easy going.
Just go with the flow.
Jackpot, buddy. I hit the jackpot.
Yeah. I played summer ball in Detroit. I actually loved it. I thought it was
unreal,
what a great
man.
experience.
It's awesome.
It's such an underrated town.
Yeah.
It was amazing. Loved
and
it.
Anybody that we told, hey, we're moving to Detroit, like COVID's hitting, everyone's got guns, it's just like, and I had no apprehensions. I lived in the States for a lot of years when I was in school and played, and I love the States. I love the way they work down here. I love it. But so for my wife too, like she never lived down here, obviously. And so we were kind of chatting about it, and she's adventurous and she's like, let's go, let's do it. And it's been amazing, man. Even the downtown, like the downtown core of Detroit is awesome. Like they got all their sports fields right around each other. You can walk to each one of them, like football, baseball, hockey. It's getting rejuvenated. There's a lot of new restaurants down there and stuff, which is great. Like I jogged through there when the weather was nicer. I was jogging downtown. Never felt like it was awesome. It was great. And everyone kind of lives like you would in any major city, kind of live outside the city a little bit, like 20 minutes outside, right? And those, like we live in a little spot called Troy. And anyone who's ever gone to the Somerset Mall, it's like a kind of like JG would never shop there. It's got like Gucci and all this other stuff. And it's crazy. But so we're right around there, but it's awesome. Like great neighborhood, really, really good schools. My kids have loved it. My wife's really enjoyed it. And it's been awesome, man. It's been really, really good. So I have nothing bad to say, man. It's been a really, really cool experience for my family and I.
And this section has been brought to us by Detroit, the greatest community in America. Back to you, Mark. Jesus, give him a spot. Why don't you? You selling real estate too on the side? Holy smokes.
You know what? It's funny because growing up in Sault Ste. Marie, I grew up as a Tigers fan because we were only a 4.5 hour drive from Detroit versus an 8-hour drive to Toronto. So my dad in the summertime would be like, we're going to a ball game. We'll go see Detroit play Toronto, but we're going to Detroit. So it was really, that was my youth growing up. The old Tiger Stadium, took my kids to the new Tiger Stadium. It was amazing. It was such a great town. Of course I went to Central Michigan University. So we were in and out of there for concerts and stuff like that all the time. But I grew to enjoy Detroit.
Yeah, I know. It's cool. Yeah. It's awesome.
Dwayne, let's dig into some well, actually, we'll go to
some real stuff,
the teaching part. So Mark and I talked about 2 influential people for us at a young age. I know you and I have talked previously in podcasts in the past, but just in case we have some new listeners or whatever, who were some pretty big influences for you at a younger age? Let's say high school, it could be elementary or, in your youth, let's say. Who were some influences and what did they bring to the table?
So I think like when I was young, I think my family was a big influence. Like my dad was a huge influence. My dad was a super supportive guy, obviously, and he's passed since, but he was a big part of me getting into hockey. I started late. I started when I was 9. So anyone out there that plays any kind of sport, like I didn't start till I was 9. And it wasn't because my parents asked, my dad asked every year, you want to play hockey? You want to play hockey? Like, no. And then we moved into a neighborhood. Their kids were playing road hockey. My brother and I, who's a year younger than I, we started playing road hockey with these kids. And then one day I came home, Dad, I think I want to play hockey, like ice hockey. He's like, phew. Like I think by the time hockey came out of my mouth, we were both in the truck. We were going to get equipment and played against sports. You know what I mean? So, but it was like, and then I started. And honestly, like my mom taught like power skating. She was a figure skater. She taught power skating in Sudbury for the city, and she like had, we could have been really good skaters. I was the worst skater on my team, like legit with equipment on, worst skater on my team. And my mom put us in a 2-week program, like of just a skating program with the city that she wasn't teaching. So other teachers taught us. And any parent out there, you know what I mean? Like you go on the ice with your kids, you're trying to teach your kids. Like, I already know, Dad. So I'd already done that for 9 years or 6 years, whatever, right? Trying to learn on the outdoor rinks with my mom, and I just wouldn't listen to her. Long story short, got okay at skating and then fell in love with hockey. And then in Sudbury, we were very fortunate because there's outdoor rinks in every single area that we lived in, so I remember waking up in the morning on a Saturday and being like, going to my parents' bedroom, they're still sleeping. Like, I'm going to the rink. Like, and I'd grab my stuff and I walked out of the outdoor rink, which is about, 10-minute walk. And my mom would show up at lunch and bring me lunch, and I wouldn't come home till dark. Like, and I do that all the time, so my mom and dad were super supportive. I had an uncle that played, who was a good player. I'd never played high level, but, just, we had a really supportive family with grandparents, stuff like that. But I think one of the biggest people that kind of shifted me was, I remember going to like Heritage. So we cut the I remember going there in grade 9, and I was a pudgy. I was an overweight kid. I was just not because I was not active. I was just, and for any kids out there who've gone through it, or parents that your kids are like this, like I was that kid. I was a pudgy kid, wore huge sweaters that probably wouldn't even fit me to this day. That are way too big, And I remember in grade 9, that was my build and whatever, right? I was short, stocky, and a little chubby. and I met, Mr. Zubik, who was one of Ron Zubik, who I had on my podcast with JG, and unbelievable guy. And he was, my dad's age. He knew my dad, and he would run with us. He'd play rugby with us. He'd play basketball with us, and he'd kick our butt in most of the stuff, So I remember vividly saying, like, regardless of sports, I was like, when I'm a dad, I want to be able to run with my kids. I want to be able to play basketball with my kids. I want to be able to, and he was kind of a guy that really like shifted. From that point on, no joke, in grade 9, 10, like AGG, like we ran a lot. We did cross country running, we did all that stuff. And from that point on, I never stopped running. Like I run to this day. Like I enjoy jogging. I hated it at one point. Like I remember my first couple of jogs were like a minute light jog, a minute walk. And I couldn't even hardly do that, and then, so it's a process for any athlete out there that's trying to get better. But then I changed my body and I started working out and I started, developing, and holy geez, I have shoulders, or I have pecs instead of boobs. This is amazing. I could take my shirt off when I swim, like I was that kid that wore shirts swimming and had guys be like, hey, nice boobs. Like, so and so it's just, but he was probably one of the biggest guys to like biggest people in my life to just kind of like shift my mentality a little bit, and only by example. It's not like he came to me and said, hey, you got to get in better shape or anything like that. It just was, happened naturally,
I still remember grade 12, I think it was pacer test. I think you'd hammer like a 12 or 13. And now that, we're older and kind of see things in a different light, just even him being proud, you're not even his kid or any of the, I don't know who else we were running with. It was that far, excuse me, in the pacer test. And just him being like happy for people succeeding, period. Didn't matter what it was. Could have been doing the beam, you know what I mean? And gymnastics, sure. Like didn't matter. It just, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. It sounds like, and it's too bad. Like it sounds like no kid should have to go through that in their youth, really being self-conscious about that. And because you do grow out of it at some point, right? And you take care of it at some point, and there's a light at the end of the tunnel. It's too bad that kids are meant to feel that way, right? Like it's insane.
You know what? I think it's tough. I really do. I look back on it for me personally, and not everyone's like this, but those are things that help me get stronger. I'll be honest with you. Like, I had parents that would be, I'd say, oh, I'm fat or, whatever. Like, no, you look great. You're athletic. Like you're fine, and I'd be like, I know I have cellulite on my stomach. Like I know, like I knew that as a kid, and every kid knows this. Right. But I had parents that were very supportive, and I remember going for jogs with my mom in the morning. Like my mom would get up in the morning sometimes and she would just go run. Like she just was, going for a run. And I'd be like, Mom, I'm going to come with you. And I run with her, and so I had parents that were like promoting that a little bit, never told me, hey, Dwayne, you got to come out for a run. She wasn't running because of me. She was just running. And always made me feel confident with it, even though inside I was like, I know I'm big. I know and I wasn't, you know what I mean? It's just, so I think for kids sometimes, and parents especially, like I can't imagine how heart-wrenching it is. Like I've got 2 young kids and I've got a daughter, and body image becomes an issue. Like body image at young age, my daughter's 7 and already there's certain things, her hair or her stomach and
skin.
Like
my wife, you name it. Like as they start hitting puberty, and it's crazy.
So, and you're trying to they're beautiful and they're athletic, and you're like, no, you're fine. Like, don't worry about it. But even though you say that, in their mind, they already know where they're at. Right. So it's just helping them find ways to escape that, find ways to like get more confidence and encourage them to be more confident, and whether that's an athlete on your team, a girl, a female, male on your team, or if it's a daughter, son, like, we all go through this stuff and it's normal. And that's the one thing I find is with a lot of stuff, no one really talks. Sometimes people don't talk about it, like even having kids, like having kids was unbelievable. It was the shittiest years I've had. Like, let's be honest. Like everyone's like, oh, the best day of my life was when my wife gave birth. Like, are you insane? That's the worst day of my life. Like my wife was screaming. There was blood everywhere. It was a mess. It was a gong show. And I was going to leave the hospital in 2 days with somebody I don't know, and I have no idea how to race. I'll take Vegas for 3 days any day over that. Like, come on, like, that's come on. Like, so,
I could see a slipper coming around the corner.
No. My wife's heard this many times, but and like I love my kids, but like you know what I mean. It's hard to being a parent's hard. So
there's no book.
And like
there's no master's degree in being a parent. You're doing it. You wake up in the morning and there's some curveball coming at you, right? Like
for sure. Yeah. And I remember going through like pregnancy. So our first kid, obviously everybody like
you didn't go through pregnancy, Jenna did, but anyways, go ahead.
But I was part of it. Okay. I was a big part of it.
Okay,
sure. And a lot of dads can relate to this, but you remember going through it and your wife's like reading every book on pregnant like,
the baby whisperer right here.
Like Dwayne, you should be reading this stuff. Like, I am not reading anything because nobody knows how to raise a kid. Like, I don't care how many books you read. Like, and then sure enough, like I messed up a lot of stuff, but like you learn, like, I think I'm a good person. I think I can teach. I think I can, I'm not, I think I can handle stressful situations. And we went through it fine. So far, our kids are walking, talking, brushing their teeth. We're good. But it's like, it's a grind, man. And so, and
How old
I've
are
had
your
this
kids now?
My little guy's 9, my girl's 7.
Oh,
so yeah.
You can
So we're
still,
still,
yeah, you could still outrun them and outskate them and
yeah,
outplay them, right?
It's coming up quick though. It's
Wait,
coming up quick.
I think it was 2 summers ago when I got beat in a foot race. It was devastating.
For sure. Yeah,
And the punches actually hurt after a while.
You got to pull the old fake hammy. Like, I want a hammy. I want a hammy.
Michael Johnson. Johnson.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's
exactly.
That's just such a terrific thing to go through, though. But I think a good coach could be a good parent, and a good parent could be a good coach. And I feel like people fall short where they're lacking on some, like sometimes a coach could use a little bit better parenting skills, or that parent could use a little bit better coaching skills, especially when we're coming like, and I'm running into more and more boys lacking confidence. One of the things we talk about on our show is confidence is not a light switch that you go on and off. You got to treat it more like a dimmer, like it'll dip a little bit, but you can bring it back up again. Right. So, and dealing with those setbacks. So parenting, and that's why we say, like, yeah, we're a leadership, mental performance, and coaching show, but you can't do that type of stuff, those 3, without including parenting in there either. So,
that's a massive, and GG and I talked about this, like, we have the kids for an hour a day, 2 hours a day as a coach, you know what I mean? And then the other, 10, 12 hours they're awake, let's say they're at school or they're with their parents. So anything you've done in that hour or 2 hours has been super positive, super reinforced. And then they go home and it's bad, whatever it is, right? A bad situation or whatever. A lot of stuff gets undone pretty quick. So you're right. I think it's a lot of times with coaching, especially the young kids, you're helping the parents coach the kid as well, or parent the kid as well sometimes, and there's been a lot of tough conversations with parents over the years where, you're telling them, like, no, they can't be on PS5 or PS4 till 1 a.m. Like, you know what I mean? Or no, you can't let them have their devices in their bedroom. Like, this is, you know what I mean? So there's a lot of things like that.
Are you sure you're not a teacher?
No, I'm not. I don't have a full pension.
He wishes.
Yeah.
I remember you're saying that story. Sorry, Mark. I remember coaching, I don't know, man, what base, it wasn't T-ball, rookie ball. So like the pitching machine. We play our first game and there's a Dairy Queen literally right across the street. And we're about to start the second game. I'm writing out the lineup and do my thing. A kid shows up and he's 8 or 9 years old with like if there's an extra large Blizzard, that's what he had.
So good.
And just like, I'm like looking over, I'm like, what is going on right now? And that I was like, Kate, you got to get rid of this. Felt bad after I ate a couple bites myself. But anyways, but I went to the same thing. I had to go to the parents, like, you can't really give him that much sugar. Like when we had to do this, maybe like some water but yeah, it's a tough conversation. Like in your head, it makes sense, but sometimes you just don't know better. It's a reward for the, like, I don't know everybody's makeup and everyone's story, but I remember that exact story as soon as you said about staying up late and making all these different types of decisions. But
but I think it's sometimes too with parents, it's like, and it's not easy. Don't get me wrong. Yes is way easier than no. Let's be honest, right? But saying no, like saying no, like, no, we're not doing that. Or no, like Dairy Queen's there. I know you want to go. I know we've gone yesterday, the day, but no, we're not doing that. I think it's not easy to do that, but man, like we just went through it tonight. My daughter didn't want to eat dinner. Okay, fine. No, I'm full. I'm like, okay, fine. But when you're hungry, like that's your snack. Sure enough, like 20 minutes later, like I'm starving. Like, well, go eat your food. Sure enough, by the end of the night, she ate her plate of food. And then she had a snack after that. But I'm like, no, that's your food. Mom made this. We made this. Like, you're eating this. Like, there's no, and that's way easier for me just to give her a granola bar, apple, and whatever. You know what I mean? And be on her way, go to bed. But I'm like, no. That's not how this works. Like, I barbecued, mom made dinner. Like, no, this is what you're eating. So if you're hungry, then eat your food. And then you can, and I'm not saying I'm a good parent because I do that, but I'm just saying it's way harder to do that. It'd be way easier to just be like, fine, eat, grab something, no problem. Like, and then go to bed and reset tomorrow, But for me, like, I think a lot of times when I see really good athletes at 9, 10, 11, and they're good kids and they're like, hey, thanks coach. And hey, like they're hardworking kids. That didn't happen at 8, 9, 10. That happened at like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You know what I mean? By some of the values that they were taught, by some of the things they went through, by how their parents parented them. Like, you know, and then you see a kid at 8, 9, 10 who's a complete off the rails train wreck, great athlete, unbelievable, you know, and good kid one-on-one, but just can't. Then you go back to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you're like, okay, you know, it's not his fault. That's just the environment he was in, you know?
So let's use that as an example then, because I find that can definitely be a challenge as a coach, but that kid has athletic ability. You can't blame them for, you know, lack of influence, proper influence earlier on in their lives. Can we as coaches correct that over time? Does that something that we can correct, and what can we do to correct it? That's something that I know coaches struggle with all the time. That great, talented kid, but is just developmentally behind that way.
I think it depends on their environment. You know what I mean? Honestly, like, and if the parents are bought in, it doesn't matter about, I'm not saying anything about economics or financial situations, nothing like that. It doesn't matter. But if, you know, if the parents are bought in and the parents, you know, believe in the kid and the parents are, are into the player's development, then yeah, I think you can. I think you can have a positive impact, especially if that player has a bit of drive. You know, if that player loves the sport of baseball or hockey or football, whatever that is, and they have that drive, I think that you can definitely, you know, you can use that as a carrot, right? And one of the things too is, you know, if you're not doing well academically, well, you can't play football. If you're not doing well, you know, academically, well, you can't play hockey, you know, so you got to have your checks in order to be able to play the sport, because that's what they love, right? And if parents are like, no, it's okay, school's not a big deal, mom will do your essay and then we're good, you know, and dad will fill out your math quiz, and that happens. Like that happens at
more than you
elite
think
levels with elite players. Like I've got stories of players playing in the NHL right now making a lot of money, and I have hard examples of them, their parents doing their essays for them in high school, you know, and now they're going to be fine. They hit the jackpot. They're good players and it all worked out for them. But for every one of those, how many did it not work out for it? And how many are struggling now to get through university or find a job or keep a job or whatever, you know, who knows. Right. So
Dwayne, I remember we did a Zoom, we had Blake Sloan, we talked to Blake Sloan. And then I remember you asking him the question. I can't remember the exact question, but I actually, you talked about him having been traded back to teams he had played for, because you had checked a little bit of his bio. And then the comment you had for that was like, when teams re-sign you, they obviously think highly of you if they want you back after a trade or whatever, you know, if they're trying to do a push or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But remember Blake talking about, you have to be an absolute douche, like, and a stud, like, in which said there's like, is the 1%ers basically, like, you can't be like that, you know, if to be able to play in the league and be, you know, have longevity of a career, so on and so forth, you just can't live that way.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like even now, like let's say we look at the NHL, which I'm in, or the you know, Major League Baseball, whatever that is, like you have your elite of the elite. You have your pitchers that are going to get signed by their teams because they're so good. They can be off field, off ice antics, whatever, but they're going to keep getting signed because they're that good, you know. But for every one of those, there's probably another 100 players that are not that, and that have to be, you know, good people, hard workers, doing the right things, you know, appeasing coaches. Like, and I'm not saying like falling in line, you don't have to, but you got to like find a role, know your role, and do that to the best of your ability. You know, and a guy like Blake Sloan, and Blake Sloan's one of many who's like probably a third liner, you know, a third line guy, fourth line guy, or a fifth, sixth D, you know what I mean, or a guy down the depth chart on a ball team. But he's a good guy. Guys love him. He's a team guy. He's team first guy. Like, and he's made a lot of money playing in the NHL for a lot of years. Won a Stanley Cup. Like, had won, you know, done a lot of good things in hockey because he's a good guy and he works hard. You know, and that's the one thing. Like, it comes back to that. You know, you got your guys like Connor McDavid and Sidney Crosby and these players that people look up to. They're like, whoa, these guys are so good. I want to be that guy. Well, you're not going to be that guy. Like, that guy's, you know what I mean? Like, those guys are like, you know, generational players, you know, and we have a lot of them in the NHL right now, which is awesome. But at the end of the day, for every one of those guys, you got 3 other lines of players. So 9 other players, let's say just on offense, that are not that are finding a way to be good NHL players. You know what I mean? And I think if you have, you know, if your attitude's in check, and the biggest thing with me is if you're going to play a sport, whether it's hockey, whatever it is, doesn't matter. You have to be passionate about it. And if you're going to put that kind of time and energy in it, you got to love it. And if you don't love it, that's okay. And I told this to many kids, like, if you don't want to play AAA or you don't want to play, you know, A baseball, you don't want to be like, that's okay. you want to go back and play house league with your boys, like no problem, man. Go do that and figure out other things you like to do, you know.
That's
but
normal.
yeah, exactly. Right. But if
I've had students have to leave the sport they loved, and athletes that I've coached that have had to leave the sport they love, not on their own terms, right? Injuries, whatever. And they struggle with that. And what I tell them all the time is, you being a football player, basketball player, or baseball player, or a hockey player does not define you as a human being.
That's hard, man.
It's hard because some people leave the game on their own terms and it's okay. But for some that don't, they have to realize that if you've laid that foundational work, that gravitational center that you created with family, hard work, and character, and all the things that we talk about on our shows about our 9 elements, that you're set as a human being. And I think that's a hard one. And at some point, every athlete comes to an end, right? Every athlete, that they got to hang it up for once. But you got to make sure that you have those skills in place to be a contributing member of society. Because if you were a donkey in the dressing room when you were a player, you're going to be a donkey in the real world too, right?
Guaranteed.
Mark and I talked about, or he transitioned a little bit. He talked about his transition from, athlete, player to coach. What was your transition like from, you were playing pro hockey, whatever you had to do, and then it turned into the coaching world? How was that? How'd you flip the switch? How did it work? How's it working?
Well, going back on that, like what Mark said, like we've all been around families where everything is around little Johnny playing football, and everything's like Johnny's going to be playing in the NFL or the CFL. He's going to be pro, like, and everything's like hockey's bad for that too. Like all the eggs are in this basket. And he's going to make the NHL. And then when that doesn't happen, that poor kid, his whole identity, his whole life's been hockey. I was really fortunate through my life. My identity wasn't hockey. Like my identity was 100% hockey in my mind. That's all I did. Like I have a brother and a sister who both played instruments, have albums out. They're well-rounded. I played a hockey stick. That's all I did. I worked out. I loved other sports. I played basketball. I played soccer. I did cross-country running, and all those things I did was because I wanted to train for hockey. And hockey was what I loved. That was it. I was crazy about hockey. I was like a dog on a bone for hockey. Like that's all I wanted to do. So what happened with me was I had a good family around me where I was more than just hockey to my family. You know what I mean? My family really didn't care if I ever played hockey again. My wife that I married, who's unbelievable, could care less if I ever wore skates or had a stick in my hand ever in my life. She has which I love that. Like I love that. And I've always, for whatever reason, even when I dated girls and whatever, like through high school and stuff, they didn't care about hockey. They didn't date me because I was a hockey player. And that was really important to me. You know what I mean? Like it was just, and I give credit to my family for that, because it was never like at family gatherings, it was like, oh, Dwayne, my mom and dad weren't around the table going, oh, Dwayne scored 2 goals. Oh, Dwayne's team's doing this. You know what I mean? Like, but you hear that, you talk to a parent sometimes about the weather, and 3 seconds later, you're talking about Johnny scoring 3 goals in the tournament that you didn't even ask about. You know what I mean? It's just, so I think at the end of the day, that's the biggest thing. So when I made that transition out of hockey into like, the real world, that was my decision. And I probably looking back on it, I have no regrets, but I love practicing. I love playing. It was the year of the lockout. I was going to go to Europe. So the NHL locked out. I was going to go play over in Europe, and a bunch of guys, like a bunch of high-end NHL guys, went over to Europe. So they're like, jobs were scarce. I was going to play in a crappy league. I was like, oh, I'm not going to do that. And then I got called to go back to play where I was playing the year before. And I was like, I just bought this business in London. I just bought a house. I was like, I'm just going to stay. And I'm glad I did.
Is that total package hockey? Total
yeah,
package
that's right.
hockey?
.ca. So
We'll
then
be sure to tag that.
Yeah, for sure. But then, so then I got asked to go coach out in the QMJHL. So I got asked to go, coach in the CHL in Canada, which is a big deal. And so I did that, and it was amazing. It was an unreal experience. But the head coach and I we just didn't see eye to eye on how things were going. And I was like, if I tie myself to this guy for another couple of years, like I'm going to be miserable, number one. And number two, like, I don't know where this ship is going. So I'm going to go back to London. And that was one of the things where like other guys that I talked to through this process of not going back were like, how are you not going back? Like, just, they want you back, go back. Like, who cares? You're coaching. I'm like, no, it's not me. Like, I'll go back and run my business and I'll do my thing. Like, it was just, so I knew early on that I was more than just hockey. If tomorrow hockey shut down and I couldn't do it anymore, I'd find something else to do. You know what I mean? But I do love it. Like, I still love it. So I'm very fortunate to be in a job and in a position in a spot in life where I do enjoy what I do, because I really do. But at the end of the day, if I had to pivot and transition, I wouldn't, I don't think I'd get depressed about it. I don't think I'd go crazy about it. You know what I mean? It would suck. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, I think there's more to me than just that,
Adapt and evolve.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Adapt
exactly.
and evolve. Yeah. And
Yeah.
definitely you're not defined by what you did, and you're defined by who you are and what you're doing. And now look, you went, and it's funny because a lot of not former athletes, I'm sure you're still an athlete, but a lot of the coaches that we interview on the show have had that transition happen kind of organically, and they fall into the coaching world. You're still coaching, you're in the player development area. How do you find that? Like, people are like, especially with the Red Wings, do these guys that are at the pinnacle of sport see you coming and like, this guy's going to teach me how to skate and shoot and do that stuff? Do you find that at that level, they're pretty receptive to the skill development and continuing to progress?
Yeah, it's a great question. And like, I never played in the NHL, right? I played professional hockey, but not at the NHL level. So I don't, if I had played 500 games, that's a different conversation to begin with, right? For me, like even the first 3-4 months of this job, I mean, only 4 or 5 months in now, was all building relationships. Like, I can't come in too hot and be like, hey, Joe, you got to work on your one-timer. You know what I mean? Like, so for me, it was not that. It was
did you help Alex Ovechkin with his one-timer from the wing?
Well, yeah,
power play?
That's one of the things people ask me all the time. Like, oh, did you work with Ovi? Like, yeah, I did. Like, I had him in a small group of 3 guys. Awesome person, really good guy. But like, I'm not going to Ovi and being like, hey, your technique's a bit off on your one time. You score 50 goals a year. Like, keep doing what you're doing. But for a guy like him, it's just like building a bit of a relationship with him. And like, I'm not here to like tell you you're good or bad. I'm gonna give you some touches. I'm gonna give you some touches on stuff that you like doing. I'm gonna give you some touches. I may give you a little bit of feedback on stuff. So for me here and Washington, same thing, is like just building relationships with the guys. You know what I mean? I was very fortunate when I was there. Tom Wilson, unfortunately for him, had like a big suspension. He had that like 20-game suspension. So I went in a couple of times just to work with him one-on-one. So I got to know him really well and just worked with him. And it was fun. He was super receptive, but it was the first, couple hours were just building relationships. He could see that I could skate and I could move and I could demonstrate. That's a big thing for me, is like, if I'm going to be a strength coach, or I'm going to be a skills coach, I better be able to skate. I better be able to demonstrate. I don't have to do it at the NHL level. I'm not playing the NHL, but I be able to do it at a good clip. I better be able to shoot. I better be able to demonstrate what I'm trying to get these guys to do, even if it's half speed, and then have knowledge of what I'm teaching, and then also too, like, a lot of guys come in too over the top, way too technical. And depending on the player you have, some players love over the top techniques. Some players just want it like A, B, C, boom, perfect. So you got to get to know that. So my first 3-4 months here has just been literally like building relationships and getting to know guys and getting comfortable with them. And I'll send them some clips and like, hey, this is what I was seeing. And like, oh man, that was awesome. Thanks a lot. And then they get to know how you see them, And I'm in a fortunate situation where I'm not taking ice time away. I'm not sitting anybody. I'm not benching anybody. And I'm kind of like the raw guy a little bit, like, and I love, these guys are all good. They all play in the NHL. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, like, let's help them get better and hopefully they can help our team get better, so that's kind of the role that I fit in. And then there's young prospects, that we're harder on like, you have to do this to get to the next level. These are the steps you have to take. Like, you got to play this way for your game to get to that next level. So that's a different conversation with those guys, but it's it's all about relationships.
What was go ahead, Mark, go.
I'm just thinking about it. You grew up in Sudbury, you went to London, and now you're in Detroit, 3 of North America's biggest hockey communities. Like, that's there's got to be you feel any pressure on that? Because I know London's a hotbed of hockey. Sudbury's a major hotbed of hockey. Detroit, well, it's hockey town, right? So
yeah.
And I know Detroit is a storied organization. Did you feel a little bit of pressure, or is it do you like being in that? Like, you're under the spotlight, because you can't tell me that the parents that are sending their kids to train with you in London don't have bigger goals in mind for their kids and even the kids themselves.
Yeah. I mean, like, Sudbury, I was young. So I left Sudbury when I was like, 18. My family's still there and I still go visit all the time and stuff. So I left.
Well, you never told me you were coming.
When I
never tell me you come. Okay. Sorry. I'll keep going the conversation. Go ahead.
So I left when I was like young, and and my parents weren't political. Like, my parents weren't involved with like the coaches, and I made teams as a 10th forward on a 10 forward team, you know what I mean? And worked my way up the lineup and try to get better. And so So leaving Sudbury was, I was young, it was fine. And then going to London, you're right. London is a hotbed, but I think the one thing that helped me in London was I was honest. Like I had played pro at that time. I'd played college, played pro, where a lot of these kids want to go. And I was very honest, and I wasn't doing it for the money. Like, yeah, I wanted to make a living doing it, but I did it because I enjoy doing it. And that's, I think, and I still do it for that reason. I'll be honest with you. Like I really enjoy what I do. So I think I ended up, developing a bit of a group of players that really we developed relate. Like some of the kids I started with years ago, I still talk to. One of them's getting married. He just called me. He's like, "Hey, I got engaged." You know what I mean? And like, I still text with like Bo Horvat, who I met when he was in Bantam, and a lot of the guys that are playing in the NHL that come through Detroit. I'll go for dinner with them, or I'll meet up with them after the game. Like, so it's more for me about relationships. It's not about coming to my camps or coming to my clinics. You know what I mean? Especially for those higher end kids. Now coming to Detroit I'd watched Detroit obviously for years in the NHL, Yzerman and Lidstrom and all these guys. Like it's unbelievable the roster that they had over the years, right? And I didn't realize till I walked through the locker room. Like now they have a new rink, it's beautiful, but it was like, holy man, there's just pictures and plaques and team pictures, and it's just like this place is insane. Like the history here is crazy, So it kind of struck me then. But we also have a really cool organization in that, starting with like Steve Yzerman, who's big on development, big on we're growing within, we're going to draft well, we're going to develop, it's a project, you know what I mean? And so it's really, really cool to be involved on that, on that part of it. Now there's still tons of expectations, even though we're not a top end team right now, as far as winning and playing hard and playing well and playing the right way. So there's pressure that way, but it's been a really, really cool transition.
JG, I know you before. Sorry, I don't want to cut you off again, but I don't want to.
No, it's okay. Do it again.
You should be getting used to it by now.
No,
this is the second time now it's rolled back to relationship building, and you're dealing with people, and that's all I'm going to add for now, because I think we lose that, because you could have made it like, hey, I'm Dwayne Blais, I played pro, I played NCAA, come to my camps, I'm going to make a boatload of money, but you started small, built relationships, and then people just come. All yours, Jean-Gilles.
I can't remember the first one was this.
Okay, wait. Think about that for a sec. But one thing on that, like, I remember one of the dads saying, like, "Hey, Dwayne, you came a long way from your milk crate and your hatchback car. Like I used to show up at the rink with like a hatchback crappy car and a milk crate with pucks and pylons in it, and like run from rink to rink to rink to rink, And that's what I was doing, man, for the first bunch, and working off my couch and just sitting on my computer on an Excel sheet, putting in times of when I'm at the rink and when I'm supposed to be there. That was my schedule, and I never imagined I'd own a gym and a whole development, group in London, and guys working for me and girls working for me and stuff. I never thought of that, but it just happened. And the other thing too, on the coaches we have an unreal team of coaches. Like I left this year, our head strength coach left and went to Arizona with the Coyotes. He's their head strength coach in Arizona. And the guys and girls back in London have done an unbelievable job of just like keeping it going and running and doing a good job. And they're awesome. They're amazing. So been very, very fortunate to be around the right people. But to your point, it was never about like money or like that. It was just about like having fun, getting good people around you and building a team. And yeah, it's worked out really, really well.
You go so many different angles with that. I'm going to go though. I'm kind of curious for the listeners. I'm curious again, because I know we spoke about it, but I want to hear a little bit more. What was the interview process once you got there? What do they have you do, or if you can even share?
Yeah. So I knew the previous skills coach that was here, and he ended up getting a job. Originally we were talking about, doing some stuff together or whatever. And then he ended up getting the job with Michigan. He wanted to get out of skills and more into coaching. So he wanted to become an assistant coach, and he got the job at Michigan University, which is unbelievable. That's where he went to school. Unreal. So then I ended up getting a call from Sean Horkoff, who played in the NHL for, 1,000 games. And he ended up calling me and saying, "Hey, listen, we're looking at interviewing some guys for a skill coach. Would you be interested in being part of the process?" I'm like, "Yeah, for sure." Okay. So I had a couple conversations with him. And they said, "Hey, would you be available on whatever day to chat with Steve Yzerman and I?" I'm like, "Yeah, for sure." So I get on a Zoom call like this, and all of a sudden, like 7 screens pop up. Like when I join the call, it's like Pat Verbeek, like Cronwall, Yzerman, Cleary, like Dan Cleary, Horkoff. I'm like, whoa, like I thought there was gonna be 2 people on this call. So the call was like probably an hour, a lot of questions about skill development, my thoughts, my theories, like what I do, how I do it, whatever. It was great. So then that was that. And then I got a call from Horkoff another day or two and like, hey, listen, that went really well. Like, would you be able to talk to Jeff Blais, the head coach in Detroit? I was like, yeah, for sure. So I sat, same thing, Zoom call with him for like an hour, just talked about kids, hockey, whatever. And then a lot of like, what are your thoughts on this? How would you help create more offense? How would you do this? Like kind of like some pretty hardball questions, which were great. I thought that went well. And then in the process, originally it was like, you're going to be able to stay in London and travel back and forth. It's kind of my mind, how I was thinking about it. Right. And then as we went down, then as after that call with Blashill, had a couple more calls with Horkoff. And then he said, listen, like we'd like you to move here potentially. So I got off the call on that call. And I knew there was myself and another guy in the running for the position, right? I kind of heard through the grapevine. So I called Horkoff back like 20 minutes later after that call. And I was like, listen, am I the guy? Like, am I the guy or am I in a race with this other guy? Because if I'm not the guy, that's totally fine. But if I'm the guy, I need to know because I got to make some stuff happen if I'm going to make this go. And I basically just wanted to know, like, if I'm 1 or 2, that's fine. If I'm 1 or 1, then this is a different conversation. And he's like, no, you're the guy. Like, you're the guy we want. So, and then that conversation changed. But I wanted to be really forthcoming with him and really honest with him. Like, let me know if I'm the guy. If I'm not the guy, that's totally fine. But I need to know because, if I am the guy, then I'm really going to think about this basically, So, and then, yeah, that conversation happened. And then that's when kind of things progressed to Jenna and I saying, yeah, you know what, let's do it and let's try it out and see how it goes.
In the interview process, like I said, 7 people popped up. So I'm trying to think for other people for job interviews. And we talk about like, we can be, and we talk, everyone has a plan till they get punched in the face. So like you're sitting there getting ready for a call, 2 people, boom. And then you've seen all these, not just names, like household names typically popping up on the screen. How did you handle that? How were you mentally strong enough to kind of get through that? Or are you just like, hey, I'm not even going to pretend what you were thinking, but what was going through your head?
I'll be honest. Like, so I had never met Steve Yzerman before. Right. And that's a Zoom call. So I hadn't, officially met him, but Steve Yzerman's a player that I grew up like watching and like just a captain, a Stanley Cup champ, like an OT winner guy, like just a guy that you want to go to battle in the war with, So even the fact that he was the GM in Detroit was attractive to me. The other thing I said, just backtrack a little bit, is if I ever got back in the NHL, I'd want to get back into a situation where, because in Washington, I was the only skill development coach for 3 or 4 years that I was there, which was great. I loved it, but I'd love to have a team. I'm a team guy. I don't have an ego. I'm not trying to take your job. I want to work together with people, So I wanted to get on a team. Like I wanted to be part of like a bigger thing, like more guys helping out with development and having, hey, did you notice his shot? Like, no, totally. That makes sense, or, hey, did you see this? And so in Detroit, they have a team. They have Sean Horkoff. They have Dan Cleary. They have got Cronwall. They've got a great team of people, right? So I was like, this is sick. So when Yzerman popped up, for instance, I was like, oh my God, that's actually like in my mind, like that's Steve Yzerman. Like, that's Steve Yzerman. I'm looking at his living room right now. Which was really cool. And then even like Cronwall's the guy I remember watching playing, Dan Cleary, Horkoff, all these guys, and Verbeek, like I was like, oh my God,
Legends.
So yeah, the first like, probably 2-3 minutes, I was like, oh geez, I'm in one here. But I've also like, there's nothing that I was going to prepare because everything about skill development, I know, like I know in my head of what I like, what I love, so the interview wasn't that hard because I wasn't faking anything. Didn't have any made up answers. I was who I was. I probably swore a couple times in the interview on stuff I was saying or, things that pissed me off with skill development or whatever, but I was just who I was. And I think, I think that's part of like, even with Jeff Blashill and him and I talked, it was a great conversation. And I was not dead against, but I hate this or I hate that. Like it just on certain things that is out there, you know what I mean? And I think that probably resonated with them a little bit that I am who I am. And then fast forward to today, like I can text Steve Yzerman right now and be like, hey, I have a question about something. You know what I mean? Like I see him almost every day or 2 days. He's around the rink all the time. He's in our office all the time. He's at games. I'll go in there. Like we have boxes that we just nothing crazy, but just areas we can sit up top, and they're in management's in one area. I sit with the goalie coach, but I'll go in the management's booth, like off whatever box and chat with them in intermission and hey, how's it going guys and stuff like that. And like, they're awesome. Like they're great. And at the end of the day, like all of us want the same thing. Like I don't want an assistant coaching job. I don't want a GM job. Like I want to help the players get better. Like Steve Yzerman wants to win a Stanley Cup. You know what I mean? Everyone's kind of pushing the same way. So it's a really, really cool environment that way where everyone's in their lane. You know, I haven't felt anybody like looking over my shoulder or breathing over my shoulder. You know what I mean? I wouldn't care anyway. Like as far as if that's going to happen, it's going to happen. If they don't like me and they want to bring this guy in, fine. But it's been really cool that way. And everyone's, you know, it's been a really, really good environment that way. So overall, it was a really, really cool process.
I'm curious because the whole concept of having a skills coach is relatively new in sport, right? Like when we grew up as kids, you did not exist. Your position did not exist.
No,
you got everything from the head coach. Dwayne, can you dive into a little bit of, I mean, your age, you started off playing hockey with a skills coach and now you're a professional skills coach. What's that evolution been like in sport? And it's not just hockey, because I'm seeing it in football. I'm seeing it, everybody has a speed coach. Everybody has their own strength coach now. It's a very niche market. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you've seen that evolution take place?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing with a skills coach, the best way to like describe, I think a good skills coach is, you look at a breakout, you look at a system, you look at a play in football, right? Coaches look at that. Oh man, we didn't execute this properly. The routes were wrong, right? A skills coach would be like, when you went to catch that ball, your hands were too wide. You got to tighten, or you know what I mean? You didn't turn your head quick enough. You didn't scan your options, whatever it is, quarterback. Like you didn't look left. You were tunnel vision on that one pass. So same thing with hockey with what we do. Now, the one thing with hockey is you got defense, you got forwards. I don't touch the goalies. We have a goalie coach that works with the goalies specifically. And some teams have a defense coach, some teams have a forward coach, you know what I mean? But for me, it's like a lot of it is interchangeable, especially the way the game's played now with D jumping in and D playing. And I understand the defense position and the forwards position, but for me, it's more like if we can't break out, we're not doing a good job breaking out on this certain, let's say one line's really struggling or one player's really struggling on the boards. Well, his wall play is not good, so I'll work on his wall play. Or he's going down to take shots. He's getting shot opportunities, but they're always getting blocked. They're always getting tipped. They're always getting knocked out, So how can we speed up his shot? How can we get him to set up his move earlier? So looking at those kind of things, protecting pucks, like those are high level things, and then there's skating and there's puck handling and there's like little things like that. But those are things that like where a skill coach would come into play. You know what I mean? So I'll take guys out before practice and work with them on certain little things, or I'll take them off ice and work on stuff, or I'll send them video and be like, hey, I'm looking at this from 200 feet above you. It's way easier for me to see this, but like, just so you know, next time you're in this situation, you got all kinds of ice behind you. So rather than trying to shove it up the wall, you can cut back and now you can make a play with this, and the guys appreciate that because, and I'm very honest about it. I'm like, I'm looking at this, drinking a coffee at 200 feet above you, you're down and there's a 200-pound guy in front of you ready to take your head off. Like this is, I get it, so
it's kind of cool in a way though, because I used to be like, when my kids started going and I became a strength coach and a speed coach, and I'm like, this is kind of weird. It's not the way I grew up. But what I appreciate it now is, as a head coach, that's one less thing I have to worry about. And I could specialize in something else, like the tactics, where somebody like yourself is taking care of the technical part. And now I could think about how's he looking? How's she doing? What do we need to do next? What's our strategy and all that stuff? So it's kind of we could specialize now and really focus on really more important stuff. So a shared knowledge, shared expertise, right?
Well, and that's the thing, like as I get more comfortable and as they get more into the system and stuff like that, like my goal is to relieve stuff off the assistant coaches and the head coaches, if that makes sense. So like head coach will come to me like, so-and-so's shot's terrible. I'm like, actually, I've got 5 clips of them. I've already sent them to him. I've been working with him on this. Like, okay, great. Because I see it too. You know what I mean? Or something will come up in conversation that the coaches are talking about. And the nice thing, the crazy thing with my job is like, I'm with the coaches day to day. So I'm like sitting at the table, going through practice. I'm watching video on like Ozone. I'm in the power play meetings. I'm in the PK meetings. So I'm hearing their language. I'm hearing their verbiage. I'm hearing what they're saying. So when I talk to a player, I'll be like, hey, your wall bump isn't good. No one knows what that means, but they do and I do and the coaches do. You know what I mean? So I can use that same language. And that's a nice thing. And I said this when I took the job and I was going to travel back and forth potentially. I told Jenna this too. I'm like, I think if you're going to do it right at the NHL level and you want a real good skills coach, you're there day to day.
Yeah.
You get to know the players. You're around them. You're on the ice,
parachuting in.
Yeah. Cause when you parachute in, it's awesome. It's fun, but you're taking 10, 15, 20 minutes to build that relationship where now every morning I'm like, hey, what's going on, buddy? Hey, how you doing, man? Hey, how was the day off yesterday? Like it's already there where we saw each other yesterday or the day before. Like so you're not wasting time getting back and meeting up again for that first 10, 15 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, so it's just normal. Right. So it's been really, really cool.
So go ahead, G. I've cut you off too many times already.
No, we're good. No, it's good. Questions are good. I remember first starting off the business and Dwayne Mark said, well, we're all in business, I guess. I just realizing that now. But I remember coaching the team and starting the business, like had to be the pitching guy, the catching guy, the hitting guy, the infield guy, the outfield guy. Because I'm just thinking about your role specifically now, how that's got to be unreal for that part. Because like you're saying, now if you can have a guy who's just going to take care of that position and then that position. And then I remember at one point as a coach, kind of looking at things, I was coaching everything. Make sure you're hitting your cutoff. Make sure you're doing this. Make sure you're doing that. And then I remember because we had played like 7 games, we're in the finals of a tournament. And I finally got to step back and manage a game rather than coach a game, right? Because coaching is like the X's and O's, this, that, and the other. But when you get to manage the game, you're like thinking 3 plays ahead. Or for me in baseball, I'm thinking like, okay, who's coming up in this situation in that part of the game if this game stays this, the score is this, and who we're going to put running for that situation. But when you're having to do everything, because I used to look at it like a sign of weakness. As a coach, I used to look at that as a sign of weakness. Why would I have, why would this guy be in charge of this? I'm the coach, man. I should be able to do this and I should be able to do that. Because then I'm thinking of like at the NHL level or at the pro level, like they have guys like you coming in. I wonder at the beginning for a coach if it hurt their ego in the sense of like, I know how to do all this stuff. What the hell is this guy doing here? And then now for me, seeing those people coming in, it's just a breath of fresh air because then I can really manage instead of coach. Just my opinion.
No, I think that's a really good point. And I think really good coaches, I think are really good leaders. I think they're really strong in some of their convictions and some of the things they want, but I think their ego is in check a little bit. They leave the power play to the one coach. They leave the penalty kill to another coach. They oversee it. They talk about it. They leave the skills to another coach. They oversee it. They talk about it, but they let that guy do their thing. I think the other thing too is there's a lot of phonies out there, right? So there's a lot of like, if I had a skills coach come out to my kids' practice, and I've had this before where I've had skill coaches come out to my practice and that I was helping out with a team and they're junk. It's terrible. So like, yeah, get off the ice. Like I didn't say that, but like, you know what I mean? It's like, I've never hired that guy or that girl. Like it's brutal.
That's how I got roped into coaching soccer. Right. I'm like, I know nothing about soccer, but I will do a hell of a better job than this schmuck.
100%, man. And that's the
Beat
thing.
it. Give me your cones and your whistle and get the hell out.
And this is the one thing with skill coaching that a lot of people are probably thinking is they're going to go to Instagram. They're going to watch a guy flip a puck in the air, tap it through his legs, bounce it here, bounce it there, and knock it in. Like,
how many times have you seen that happen in a game?
Yeah, and like great skill. It's amazing. Even the Michigan or like scooping it behind the net and tucking it in, unbelievable play. Like great. There's been 4 of them in the NHL in the last 3-4 years. Like it's an unreal goal. Don't get me wrong, but like there's 4 of them, and one guy did it twice. You know what I mean? And Zegras has done it twice. One flipped over, one he tucked it, but like it's happened to me half a dozen times. Like that's 5-6 players that have done that, and there's 700 players in the league.
In probably like a multi-million opportunities to make that play happen, right?
100%.
It's like winning the lottery.
100%. Yeah. So
whereas it's the small details of, like you say, the bump off the boards. Those are little things that make you a pro and keep you a pro.
Exactly. And so I think there's a lot of phonies out there. And if regardless if they have 3 million followers on Instagram or YouTube or whatever, it doesn't matter. So I think that at the end of the day, it's like, for me, if I had to connect with the coaching staff, I had to, you know what I mean? There was a lot of relationships to be built there that they trust what I do. And I work with like Alex Tanguay's played, I think 1,000 games in the NHL. He's scored a ton of points. Like he's and he's one of our assistant coaches. He's amazing. So him and I chat all the time. He'll have drills with me. Yeah, that's great. If he comes in and he has a drill and I was about to do a drill, I'm like, yeah, it's cool. I'll jump in. Like, I'll help out with it. Like, I don't have an ego on that. I'm like, yeah, it's cool. Let's do that. Same with the D coach who does, Doug Huda's played many years. He's coached for almost 18 years in the NHL. Like, he's been around a long time. Like, yeah, let's work together, man. So like, and I was very clear with both of them at different opportunities where I was like, I don't want to be an assistant coach in the NHL right now. Like, I'm not here to like further my career to become an assistant coach. I'm here to be a skills coach. I like my lane. I love what I do. I want to work with you guys. Like,
It's pretty cool
you as a person. So we've had good, it's been great. Like, overall, it's been awesome. Like, we've all worked well together so far. So.
And it's funny you said that, because I'm not a hockey specialist, and I love being a head coach in hockey because I love, like JG, the managing and the stuff like that. And I love coaching, but I sent my own kid to technical specialists, and she's had a handful. And the interesting part is her favorite ones were the ones that she enjoyed. They were not donkeys. They weren't jerks, and they didn't have the big ego. Yeah. Like, look at me, I played here and I did this. It was, okay, let's make you better. And it was about you, not them. And I think those were the ones that, because she had some that had amazing pedigrees. Like, this one guy had an amazing hockey pedigree, and we were driving to Mississauga to see him, but she's like, I don't want to come back here. I was like, okay, no problem.
Dwayne, what did you say? If we have to cut this later, we can cut this later. But what did you say to me? Like, if somebody has a really good example resume, like, parents typically will give that person, you got maybe 2 or 3 shots until they really find out who you are, and then kind of things wash themselves out. Do you remember that conversation?
Yeah, I think honestly, like, even to your point, Mark, like, you bring your daughter. I always tell parents, like, your kid's your measuring stick, man.
Yeah.
And you as a parent have to be a conscious consumer. Because if you're going to throw money at garbage, that's on you. Like, that's on you. So like, if you're out there watching your kid and the skills coach is taking more time videoing your kid for Instagram than he is working with your kid, or she is working with your kid, red flag.
Yeah.
If they're not getting corrected through drills, they're just running through a bunch of drills, like, red flag, So, and you've gone through all this in multiple sports. So I think if your daughter comes home or your son comes home or in the car, they're like, I told, anytime I have a higher end kid, let's say I had your daughter who's, playing D1, and I was working with her in junior, and I'd say, listen, we're only doing 1 session. And after the session, I'd talk to you guys, be like, on the car ride home, you guys talk about it. If you guys want to do another one, let me know. Let me know. And if not, no worries at all. Like, no hard feelings. Like, it's totally cool. Cause I'm not going to connect with everybody,
Yeah.
And I think that's like the one thing that's helped me along the way was like, there's no commitment here. You don't have to buy a 10-pack. You don't have to buy a 5-pack. It's like, this is an investment, especially as you get into like that AAA, even at 10, 11, 12, 13, you want to do private lessons or small group lessons. It costs a lot of money. So let's do 1 session. See how you like me. See how you like what I do. See you like what I'm teaching your kid, And I think that's a big thing. Like, the kids are a good measuring stick, but also parents got to watch, because some of these guys and girls they're exactly, JG 2-3 sessions in, you're like, we're doing the same session again today that we did 3 days ago. It's identical pretty much. Like, why are we doing 2-on-1s when I want my kid to be better at shooting the puck? Like, what are we doing right now? So, and
well, I think we need to back it up too and say, does your kid even want to do that?
That's huge for sure.
And I think, like, yeah, great.
For
you find
sure.
a great coach, but is your kid willing to go and do that? And it's like, one day it's like, my kid's like, I think I want to go work on, edges or whatever. But it was just some of those things that we as parents would be like, you need to do this, you need to do that. And then all of a sudden now we start to kind of create that wet blanket, that pressure that might take away the love of the game for the kid. Right.
Well, and I think that's a big thing. Like, any sport it is, right? Like, I remember for me, JG, you're probably the same, Mark, probably the same. Like, my parents never told me to go shoot pucks. My parents never told me to go deal with the rink. My parents never told me to go for a jog. Like, I did all that stuff on my own. And I'm going through it now with my young guy who's 9. And I was like, well, if you want a new stick, like, you gotta shoot pucks. Like, if you want me to buy you a new stick, you gotta practice. You gotta shoot pucks, And my wife comes over to me. She's like, Dwayne, like, he's on his rollerblades every day. Like, he's outside playing like hockey every day. Like, and I'm like, yeah, you're right. Like, you're right. But, and
get off your wallet and get your kid.
Yeah,
you work for an NHL franchise. Can you not walk out the door with a stick?
I'm sorry. No, but it's some of those things where, like, she was right, obviously, but like, he likes it right now. We'll see what happens down the road. But like, if your kid's doing those things and they're unprompted, they're just going out and doing it, like, then for me, I'm like, open doors, man. Help open doors, because there's, who knows what happens. Maybe they just play high level AA hockey or high level football in high school, which is amazing. Like, that's awesome.
It's just about building skills as a person.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, for sure.
I remember I shared this story in a previous episode, but I remember when we had anatomy. You're in my class, I'm almost positive. We were at anatomy. We had Zbuk as a teacher, And we had this project, and it was like, you had to do 50 pictures or 100 pictures of injuries or people, or I can't remember what it was. And I had taken all the Sports Illustrateds and cut out like whoever number 1 was, and 2 was like Derek Jeter, like to show like this is the number 1 exercise, number 2 all the way through. And I remember getting to like later numbers, like, what the hell am I doing? I didn't even like this stuff. But I was just at the point that when you find somebody and you're just so involved in it, and like my parents didn't say, hey, you have to do a really good job in this project if you want to get your credit. I just wanted to do it. Right. And it's like, you wanted to be like, to be proud of you. Like, hey man, you did a freaking good job here. But it just becomes internal. And if you're just given the right, I guess, like you're saying, the right opportunities, and you get the right stage to be able to do it, but it's just to keep giving those opportunities to be able to successful, I guess, at the same time.
Totally. Yeah, no, for sure. And I think for parents too, like surrounding your kids with the right people, especially as they get high end, right? Yeah. Whether it's a coach, whether it's a teacher, whether it's a strength coach, a skills coach, a mental coach, or whatever that is, like start surrounding. And, I joke about this all the time. Like if any of the guys I worked with signed, drafted in the first round in the NHL, like I didn't get anything for that. Like I didn't get a bonus for that. Like I don't give a shit, but I love it. Like good for you. And I'm proud of them, and for me, like that was my enjoyment of working with a lot of these guys. And still now, like, I'm not going to get a bonus if so-and-so scores 20 goals this year. You know what I mean? And that, I don't care.
Bucket.
Yeah. But it's like, man, this is awesome. This is great. Like good for you, So it's to your point, Gigi. It's like, you get motivated by working with these athletes, you know what I mean? And you try to, like, as a coach, you try to inspire them a little bit and try to get them to be better and try to get them to find that inspiration within them,
We tell our families, your kid and you are the average of the 5 people you hang out with the most. At the end of the day, you can't hang out with dusters.
No, you can't. Dusters aren't good.
Mark, what do you call them? Shoe boxes you put on the top shelf and you forget about, and they collect dust
inside the garage. I don't even see them.
Jeez, like who's anyway. So Dwayne, you talked about this at Detroit, but you also talked about this at Total Package, Total Player Hockey, something like that. But but surrounding yourself with good people. What did it take, or what's it take to get finally to that environment? Like you said, sitting there in front of Excel spreadsheets, where do I need to be? And it was just like craziness, organized, controlled chaos, I would call it. But then finally you got like, maybe somebody to help you out, and then somebody else. And next thing you're leasing a place, and it just kind of, it grows organically. But I'm sure you had some duds at the same time, but like, how do you get to the point to surround, like, I know we all want to surround ourselves with good people, but what's that take? What's that look like?
I think part of it is being patient a little bit and not like just jumping in right away. The first person that comes knocking on your door, like, hey, I got a stick in a pocket and skates, I want to work for you. And because that happens. But just being patient a little bit on it, and, and then getting to know people, and really trying to find out their kind of true, and the elephant in the room. What do you want? Like, you want to make money doing hockey? Do you want to coach kids? Do you want to, like, finding out what their motivation is too? I think that was a big piece of it as well. And also to not being afraid to like work, like I've gone through 2 times now where I've had like my second guy, like my best guy, leave. And I'm like, oh man. And that means I'm on the ice more. That means I'm traveling a little bit more. That means and I do it, and then we're okay. We've been okay. And that happened again. We were okay, And so I think that's the biggest thing, not being afraid to work. And then also just trying to like be patient and getting to know people. Don't rush into relationships. Just like you would, if your daughter comes home and says, hey, I met a guy 2 months ago, I'm going to get married. Like, no, you're not. Like, no, you're not. There's no way you're getting married. Like, you're in the basement, I'm walking you down there. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, that would be a long conversation, right? So I just think that, like, just build, just be patient with it a little bit. And then, and then try to find the right people, obviously, which takes time,
I know a guy that's kind of the situations you're talking about right now, but how is it? Because you said, I'm not going to have to take on more. Like, Mark, you've lived this. Dwayne, I want to get your input on it. It's the conversation with your wife, right? Like with Jenna, like, cause as soon as that happens, I'm making an assumption here. As soon as that happens, like, okay, man, I was on the ice for 40 hours. I got to put in 65 hours now, and it's going to be less time for this. And she's going to have to go here, do this, and I'm going to miss this with the kids now. How'd you deal with that? Like, I know
Tell
you
you
guys
what.
gotten stronger, obviously,
Yeah.
with it, but how's
I'll
that
tell you
work?
what though, man. But I was really honest with my wife when we first started dating and stuff. And I said, like, this is kind of what I do. And it's going to be weird hours. Like I work when the kids are out of school. So I work opposite of my buddy JG and Mark. But I work, I'm going to work from 4 o'clock till 9 o'clock some nights or whatever. And my whole goal is to get away from that eventually and hire good people that could help me out with that. And then I could be home, and especially when you had a family and things like that, So, and my wife's been unbelievable the whole time. Now there's obviously concessions. Like I gotta, if hey, we're gonna go away this weekend, like I really try to make that happen. Or hey, I want to have at least 1 or 2 nights at home where I'm gonna be at home for that night, But then coming to Detroit, even now we're almost back to like, because we have a game, tomorrow night. I'll leave, like I probably won't see my kids in the morning. I'll leave at 6:37, and I may stay at the rink all day. And then I won't get home till 12 o'clock at night, so I won't see them. And then I'll go to the rink the next morning at 6 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, and then I'll pick them up from school. And that sucks. Like as a dad, that sucks. Don't get me wrong, but for my wife, that sucks too. You know what I mean? Like, but it's those conversations, Jay. It's explaining to her, like, she's super supportive, which has been great. And it's also like my wife and I also have like goals and visions long term, like as far as just, and not even about money, just like we want to retire. We want to retire young one day. We want to go and travel. We want to do our thing. Like we enjoy each other. We enjoy spending time with each other and stuff. So and I'm not saying we have the perfect marriage or like that, but what I'm getting at is like, it's having those conversations and communicating with her.
Turning into a couples show.
No, but it's like, because I'll tell you what, man, I hired a guy at one point and I said, listen, before I hire you full time, I want to sit down with you and your wife. And I went to their house and I met with him and his wife. We sat down at a coffee table, had coffee, and we're like, told his wife, I'm like, listen, because sometimes husbands tend to sugarcoat things a little bit, but I was like, listen, I want you to know, like, this job sucks, and I laid it out for him. Like, we might work 5 days a week from like 4 o'clock till 10 o'clock. And then we got to be in the morning. So we have early morning sessions. Like, I just wanted her to know and hear from me that this is not going to be so. When she's pissed off and she's mad at him and he's sewering me and she's like, it's like, I told you that this is exactly what it's going to be like, and it worked out great. We were together for, 10 years. We were together. It was awesome. And she was great. And he was awesome, but it was just like, it's having those tough conversations, which aren't ideal, and at the end of the day, hopefully your wife knows that, you're not just like hanging out with your buddies and playing cards. You're like, you're building something. You're trying to, like, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing that, I try to communicate with my wife and make sure she's on board. Like if she was hard squashing it, then I probably would, probably make different decisions, you know what I mean? Or have tougher conversations,
Yeah.
So like, sorry. So for the rink, like the game's at 7, you don't show up at 5. That's not how it works.
No. Well, you know what? Like sometimes I'll come home though. Like, so we'll go in the mornings to a pregame skate, right? And if there's injured guys, I'll skate those guys. So I'll be there, on the ice. Let's say we get in kind of early at like 7, go through practice, whatever we're going to do that day. And then I'll skate guys before pregame, and then I'll go on the ice for pregame skate at like 10:30 with the coaching staff and do that. And then I'll stay on with guys after pregame skate, mess around with them and like work on shooting, whatever it is. And then by that time, it's like 11:30, 12, usually by the time we're kind of wrapped up and done everything. So I could shoot home. Sometimes there's stuff going on at the rink that we're meeting or whatever, but then I got to come back. I'm usually back by 4 or 5 for the game. You know what I mean? So I'm like, some days I'll just stay here, some days I'll shoot home, but it depends on the day.
That's what I'm saying. I'm trying to get people to wrap around their brains. Like, it's not just like a show and go. Like there's a lot that is going to the process. It looks pretty when you turn on your TV, when it's convenient and you crack open your beer and you're watching the game, but who should, like, it just, it never stops, man.
It's crazy. Like, so I don't travel with the team. Like when the team goes away and, goes to Philadelphia or goes to Anaheim, wherever, I stay back. I'll work with injured guys if they're here, or I'll go to Grand Rapids, which is our AHL team. So I'm there, like, whatever it is, depending on the month, maybe 6 times a month or 8 times a month, I'll go in for a day or 2 days. It's 2 hours away. So I can leave, like, get up at 4:35 in the morning, go to Grand Rapids, hang out with the coaches in the morning, skate with the guys till like 12:31. And then I'll shoot back. I can pick the kids up at school. So it's not bad. It's a day trip if I go for a day. But the coaches in the NHL, like, for anyone listening who doesn't know, like, they're at the rink usually by 7:30, almost daily. One day off a week, usually like a mandatory day off a week for the players, but that's not the coaches. Like, so every time we play, they're starting to pre-scout for the next game. You know what I mean? They're starting to get ready for the next game, right? So they're looking at the clips from last game, they're pre-scout for the next game, and the schedule is really intense at the NHL level. And I think football and basketball and stuff is the same. I don't think it's much different, but it's at the NHL level, at the pro level, it's a lot, man. There's a lot of travel, a lot of video, a lot of it's intense for sure.
Yeah. Awesome.
It's interesting going back to family and things. It's a foundational element to allowing people like ourselves to do what we do and do the extra stuff and enjoy it. And I always ask our guests, especially if they're parents, do you parent the same way you coach or coach the same way you parent?
It's interesting. I think I'm pretty level on, like, I have a hard time watching my kids sometimes. Like, I don't, not externally, but internally, because I'm like, oh man, they could add that, or oh geez, like whether it's soccer, like, oh my God, you could dominate this game. Like you could, so I have a hard time with that. I really try to lay off them. I was very, very fortunate. I had a dad who was super positive, never got on me about anything. I was way harder. I think he knew I was way harder on myself than anybody. So I could play the worst game in the world, then get in the car and be like, played all right. He skated hard out there. I'm like, Dad, I suck tonight. Like and then we'd have that conversation, but he's always positive. So I was really fortunate. I'm not quite like that. Like, I'm a little bit more like, I want to talk about it a little bit, but I've asked both my kids this, and I said, hey, when Dad's on the ice, like at practice, I'm like, do you guys feel like you're my dad, like you're my son, or do you feel like you're one of the players? And both of them, my son was like, no, I feel like I'm one of the players. I'm like, okay, good. Because I really try to treat them like one of the players. And even on the bench, if I'm coaching them, like they're one of the players. I'm not harder on them. I probably maybe talk to them or their line more, like, just now that I'm thinking about it, probably give them more advice. I give all the lines advice, but you know what I mean? I want my kid to be good. Like, let's be honest, we all do, right?
Yep.
But I'm not hard on my kid. I don't sit my kid for no reason. I don't yell at him. And I don't play him more. Like, I don't give him extra ice because he's my kid, so I try to be as level as I can. And with all the kids, like I'm like, my kid, for instance, will play on a team right now with a bunch of 9-year-olds, 8-9-year-olds. And I think my kid's one of 2 kids that like gets dressed on his own, ties his own skates and everything. And that was something that, like, from the time they were 6 years old, like, you're getting undressed on your own. I'll help you get dressed, but you're getting undressed on your own. And then they get dressed on their own. And then I want you to tie your skates, And my daughter's starting to tie her own skates now too. And it's not that like, but it's just like, that's an independent thing. That's like, you go do your thing, you get dressed, you do your thing. And so I'm trying as much as I can to make them as independent as they can. He wants to play, he's playing D right now. He wants to play forward. I'm like, ask the coach. Like, I'm just assistant coach. I can't be around all the time. Like, ask the coach. So he goes and asks the coach, like, you know what I mean? So that's on you. Like, so I'm trying to, for me, it's not about them being good players. It's about them being good people and learning how to talk to authority, learning how to deal with conflict, all that stuff, So that's my big thing with them right now. And I think they're young. I don't think anyone's going to make the NHL at 9 years old or 10 years old. So I really don't care about that. I just think, let's make them good kids, and not just him, there are other kids on the team too. Let's make them good kids, good people, good teammates. And then hopefully things, work well for them,
I'd read that or seen that somewhere where they typically say people raise their kids either for their kids to be independent or to be able to still take care of them when they're older. And it sounds like, I'm making an assumption here, I think we've had our parents kind of like, get the hell out of the house, fend for yourself. But I talked to Mark about this morning. I don't know how it's going to go, this conversation, but 3 of us lost our dads when I think is at a young age. Is that fair to say, Dwayne, for you, Mark?
For sure. Yeah.
So how has that been? Like, I'm throwing that even to you, Mark, like, not just for Dwayne, for this question Mark, specifically.
Oh, well, Dwayne, so your story about you. Oh, your story about your dad being positive. And I remember playing with a guy and his dad was not positive. And this is going to be tough to get through, but I think we were maybe 12 years old. And if he didn't have a good game, he'd make his kid run home. But my dad knew that. So he'd say to me, we're waiting here. We're going to let the old man leave and we're going to pick up the kid and drive him home.
Yeah.
So to me, it just, and back then as a kid, I didn't really think anything about it, but your story just made me think about that. Like, the thing was, I was learning compassion from my dad at a young age. It's just like, it wasn't about sports. It was about people.
Yeah.
And doing this podcast and telling these stories, and Gigi, you and I talked about a lot of this is founded in our families and stuff like that. And you're realizing now that like my mom used to throw me batting practice in the backyard with like little peas. She'd wear like goggles and she's like, "You want to swing the bat? I'll throw you some peas."
Holy shit.
No, it's true.
Amazing.
And we'd have little
That's
peas growing in
amazing.
the grass in the summertime, but like,
That's
they were
awesome.
there. And they're always there for other people's kids and stuff like that. My dad would be the
Yeah.
one to drive people, and we're going to do that. But, it's, it's tough, man.
Totally. How old are you when you lost your dad, Mark?
Oh God, it's been a while now. I think now it's been 14 years. So I was in my mid 30s, early 30s. Yeah. So it was too soon.
Yeah. Oh, definitely, man. Definitely.
Yeah.
How old are you, JG?
Same thing. I think I was like late 20s, early 30s.
Yeah.
And you think right at the time, you think your parents like, I don't know, you think it's old, but now that you're getting older, holy shit, that's so young.
It's crazy.
And crazy. I always say like, I'm finding lessons now as I'm getting older from my dad thinking, when I remember when he passed, it was like, did I get all the lessons I needed? My dad was a quiet guy, but he was a lead by example guy and all that stuff. So to me, like that is the lessons were taught like early, and it's a continuation, right? So very fortunate that way. Both parents super supportive.
No, definitely.
Dwayne was same thing, no? Late 30, mid 30?
No, I was 19, man. I was
19, sorry.
So my dad, it's a crazy story. My dad was like, so when I played junior in Markham. So I left Sudbury, moved to Markham, played in junior in Markham. We'd play a game on a Saturday night, let's say. My dad would randomly, didn't know, come to the game, like drive from Sudbury to Markham. I could hear him yelling. He always yelled, "Let's go blue." And I could up my dad's there. After the game, we'd done that, 9:30, 10 o'clock. It was a junior game. There'd be fans. Like it was a pretty good setup. Go out. Hey, Dad, how's it going? Shoot the shit in the parking lot a bit. It's all right. I'm heading back. Go back to Sudbury. Like come down for a game, man. Like that's like he did that numerous times. Just road warrior. He is a salesman. He traveled a lot. No problem driving 3.5, 4 hours to watch a game, then drive back. Like, and he was a guy, like if he wasn't at my games or whatever, I'd call him after. Like I remember being at the bar, like just a pub and we'd go to after the game, get wings and beers or whatever, and down on the payphone, like put the quarter in or whatever it was called, collect, call my dad, like, hey buddy, how's the game, man? Because back then you didn't have games on broadcast or like that. You had no idea, right? I'm like, hey, it was good. We won 3-2, I had a goal, whatever, all good. How'd you play? And then, all right, so love you, bye. It's like he was that guy, right? So I got a scholarship to Alabama. My mom and my dad. So my mom, my dad, my sister drove me down to Alabama, dropped me off, stayed a couple of days, made sure I was settled, and then drove back. So we weren't like, so we chatted maybe that week once, and then that weekend, but Sunday, my dad called me, I think it was, and he's like, hey,
sorry, this is your freshman year?
My first year there, yeah.
Okay,
so my dad calls me, he's like, hey, I don't think I've ever told this whole story, maybe I have, but he's like, hey, how's everything going? We're good, everything's fine. And he's like, yeah, I'm not feeling that great, like I'm kind of under the weather a little bit. I'm like, oh no way. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna go see grandma and grandpa. That was his mom and dad. They were really close. They lived not too far away. So I'm like, okay. My dad, like, I don't know about your dad's, like, never really got sick. Like, I don't know, never really remember that my dad getting sick. So anyways,
put duct tape on it.
Yeah, basically, right? Yeah. So he goes to my grandma and grandpa's, whatever, and that's fine. And then the next day, so Monday, whatever it was, morning, afternoon, I can't remember, my mom calls me. And my mom's like, hey, Dwayne, dad's in the hospital. I'm like, I just talked to him yesterday. And my mom was out of town. My mom was in Montreal visiting her her grandmother and stuff with my little sister. So they came back. My dad had a seizure at my grandparents' place. So he had something called encephalitis, which is like a swelling in the brain. And it could be caused by like a mosquito. It could have been caused in Alabama. No one really knows what happened. But long story short, he ended up like basically losing the first conversation I had with him, it was like something along the lines of like, hey dad, how's it going, man? He's like, oh, good. I was just at Uncle Rick's, we were fixing the car, and like, just like talking to like a crazy person, like no idea. So he lost all his long-term memory, all his short-term memory. And was basically, they're like, he probably will never function in society again. Well, couple of years, a year later, he's basically driving again. He's living like he's on his own, but he's like a long lost uncle. Like he never, he wouldn't remember where I was. He knew who I was, but didn't know where I was or where I played or what I was doing at that point or whatever, So, and we went like that for 20 years, man, roughly.
Oh.
He lived like that. And then at the end, he got cancer and got really sick and then passed, which was probably honestly like the best thing by the end. It was, but yeah, it was like, that was the toughest part is, we went from 19 years old, like one of my best buddies as far as a dad, father figure, whatever. And then losing that, and that's like you guys too, you wish you'd be here to see the grandkids and hang out and come over for, you watch the kids play sports and, your dad, same thing. They would have been the biggest cheerleaders and would have been so pumped about it, So, it's just, and when my dad got sick, I went back, I was at school, obviously. And when I was at school, my mom owned us, my dad was self-employed. My mom was self-employed. And my mom owned a little restaurant. I knew the restaurant wasn't going well. I was the oldest kid. So I knew I knew the financials, not in depth, but I knew it wasn't great. And my dad was doing well in real estate and whatever. So now all of a sudden that's zero. So I told my mom, I'm like, I'm going to come home. And hockey sucked. Like I was playing every second game. I was a freshman. I was a rookie. Like it was brutal. I'm like, I'm coming home. She's like, no, you're not coming home. Like you're not, there's nothing you can do here. Cause my brother was there. My sister were there in Sudbury. I'm like, I'll come home, I'll work, I'll help out, and I can come back here next year. She's like, no, you're not going. She would not let me leave. And good thing she didn't. Like, that was probably the worst year, but I didn't talk to anybody about it. I didn't talk to anybody. Like, my buddies on the team didn't know, nobody knew. The next year I got back to school, one of my buddies had found out through the grapevine that my dad was sick. And a good buddy of mine, he came to me and he's like, he was pissed. He's like, why didn't you tell me this? Like, and then we started talking about it. And when I started talking about it, it just like, it was like a huge weight lifted off my shoulders, man. And I started talking a little bit like I wasn't spreading the gospel about this, but I was talking to people about it more. And it was like, I was bottling up so much, man. And it was so bad for me. And I didn't realize it. And then from that point on, it was just like, okay, it just got so much easier to like communicate about things that are a little bit deeper than, and once you start talking about it, you realize that everyone's got a story, you know what I mean? That's my story. And people have way worse stories than that, but everybody's got a story of something and you just got to realize that,
I try to tell the athletes that I coach at least once a year, and because I know my dad passing and not having a chance to see his granddaughters flourish. Like they were young, like 6 and 8, I think when he passed away. I tell the adult kids adults that are 18, 14, 15, I say, look in the bleachers right now. Your parents and your grandparents, be grateful that they've given you the opportunity to do this.
Right.
I do it for every sport. And some kids, we take it for granted, right? We get into the routine. Mom and dad are going to drive me. We're going to go and then all of a sudden, like your case, you just, one day he was fine. And the next day he wasn't. So this is a reminder for everybody to be grateful and, share that gratitude. And like, guys, like we've had plenty of people open up on the show about that because family's so important to making you function as a professional, as a dad. And, I never want to take anybody for granted. So I always try to tell players, never take anybody for granted in your family. And when they're there, you never know. I remember playing a game and looking up in the bleachers the first time. I mean, I was an adult at this point and I was playing men's league, but I remember my dad wasn't in the bleachers. Like it was a national championship here and my mom was here. My sisters were here, but my dad wasn't here. It was weird. It was weird.
Totally.
I felt good, man.
Yep. It's a family show. It's a family show.
That's it.
Now,
Dwayne fucking dropped a shit somewhere. So we went PG 13. Now we're like at R probably or something.
Now, Dwayne, let's shift gears here a little bit. If you could get, and again, I have some questions that we kind of roll around because I like hearing people's responses to these because everybody has a different response. So let's just say we can go back in time now and talk to 20-year-old Dwayne, and what would the advice be given from you now to that 20-year-old? Or a younger version of you. Let's not put a label on the age.
Yeah.
A younger
honestly,
version.
I think if I had to talk to any 20-year-old right now, especially myself, it was be more comfortable around authority, be more comfortable around coaches, get to know your coaches better. I think one thing I was I wasn't a follower by any means, and I would stand up for what I believed in, but I always was always nervous around coaches, or was awkward around coaches, because especially in hockey, because that's what I, wanted to aspire to continue to do. But ask questions more, and yeah, I think that would probably be the biggest thing. And the other thing too is just surround yourself with the right people, and I had great buddies. Like, I had really good friends, and I was very fortunate. Like, I had really, really good people around me, but yeah, just surround yourself with the right people and make sure that you're towing it the right way. If whatever your goals are, if it's academics, if it's athletics, whatever that is, but just, I think that's a big thing. And then honestly, man, like, I think overall I was a good guy, and there's times probably where I was a little cocky, or I was a little, and I think we're all going to go through that, and it's part of living and being, growing up. But yeah, just kind of enjoying the process. Sometimes you want to get to that stage so fast that you kind of miss the gaps in between a little bit, you know what I mean? But enjoy that a little bit, and kind of enjoy the process a bit. But yeah, biggest thing is just be confident, and be okay with talking to adults, and be okay talking to coaches and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Jean-Jean, did your dad ever get a chance to watch you play college ball?
Don't even bring that up.
Oh,
so no, it's a good story. Not really. So he comes I'm at West Virginia State University. Game plays out. I think we're down by runner on second base. We're down by 1. I strike out to lose the game, right? Game 1 of the doubleheader. So I strike out. My dad's been to I think 3 games my entire life of baseball. And I've been playing since same things when 9 years old.
Yeah.
So after the game, I'm just more jacked that he's watching me play. So after the game, I'm like, hey, introducing all my buddies to my dad. I was like, hey, this is my dad. It's my dad. I want to use his language, but all my, the guys most of the team is around. Hey, it's my dad. It's a proud moment. So they're all that. Anyway, he primed this right. He waits till everybody's kind of around. He looks at me. He's like, well, you really screwed that one up, didn't you? I was like, oh my God. So next game, I think I'm hitting 3-hole at the time. So next game, it's a double header. So it's I don't know, maybe a half hour in between. Next game, my first at bat, I hit a home run. I'm running the bases. He's MIA. Shows up the third or fourth inning. I'm like, after the game, I'm like, oh, I had to go to Shoney's, man. That's a wicked buffet at Shoney's. You gotta be kidding me right now.
I love it.
Oh my God. So that was the college time he had come see me playing.
Well, there's no Shoney's up in Sudbury.
No Shoney's in Sudbury.
No.
I couldn't believe it, man.
Oh man, Dwayne, I appreciate you guys and JG too, the openness, and I think it's important that men talk and we take the opportunity to talk, because what we do is sometimes I say we pass by each other in the hallways and we're doing our jobs, but we don't necessarily take the time to check in with each other and say, hey man, how are you doing? Right? Do we actually care about
totally.
this? So this is good, especially this time of month with the Bell Let's Talk stuff. So here's a shout out to the
it's not a one day thing. It's 365 days a year thing.
Yeah, well, it should be. That's the way it should be. So Dwayne, one of the things we like to leave for our listeners is, of course, and I know you're going to like this, is your chance to be a teacher, pal. And
oh, there you go. I like it. Here we go.
You get a part of our pension.
Yeah. So we like to give them something to think about, or leave them for something for the next episode or in between. In your case, what would be the best piece of leadership or coaching advice that you could give somebody who's trying to be a better coach, a better leader, or a better parent? Or maybe a resource, a book that you've read, or one of your best resources, or some pearl of wisdom. Give us something, please.
Yeah. One guy, you know what? I think honestly, being a good coach, number one is I think it's changed a lot over the years. I think when we were younger, coaches coached to the group and just coach everyone the same. I think knowing your individuals and getting to know your players as people, and even at what I do at this level, I'm not the head coach by any means, but I already some of the guys, I know how many kids they have. I know one of them just had a baby. I know he's got a girlfriend in town. You know what I mean? So just getting to know people as people aside from the sport. I think that's a big help as far as coaching. So, just being able to build those relationships that way, I think is huge. I think one thing that I've been on, and JG, and I may have talked about David Goggins, right?
Yeah.
And just sometimes you think you're going hard, but you're not going hard enough, and I just can you push a bit harder, whether it's a coach, and then I'll be the first to admit, like I have bad days. Like there's days where I'm not a good coach. There's days where I'm watching too much Netflix, or I'm stuck on YouTube for an hour and watching stupid stuff. You know what I mean? Like that happens. And I think, but I think that's one thing where like sometimes we think we're working hard, but we're not really working that hard, you know? And I also think the other thing too is don't get too caught up with the white noise around you. You know, you see this on YouTube, you see this on Instagram, where you see, oh my God, this coach is doing this, or this guy's got 9 pillars. Like, don't worry about the 9 pillars. You know, but I think like, just like, don't like really, if you
Except ours.
right, exactly. No, but like, but you know, do the research and be confident what you know. And if you don't know, then go check it out. There's guys like JG, there's guys like you, there's guys like me, there's people out there that are very open, and you know, you get emails, I get emails, like, yeah, I'll answer it. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I just think there's people out there that are willing to help and willing to pay it forward and willing to talk to other people about stuff. But if you're, you know, if you're strong in what you believe in and you're good at what you do, then just, you know, believe in what you do and do the best that you can with it, and don't worry too much about what's going on around you.
So I'm assuming that you're referring with David Goggins, the Can't Hurt Me, the book.
The book, yeah,
Or,
the audiobook is actually unbelievable because they have like little podcast sections in between.
Oh, it's awesome.
It's unreal. Yeah. And for me, like with him, his story is unbelievable, and the guy's insane. Like, let's be honest, the guy's nuts, the stuff he's done. But it's just that mentality of when you think you're like all out and you're gassed or you're done, your day's done, like, oh my God, like, no, you got more, man. You can do more if you wanted to, you know, and just understanding kind of the how you can push. And the one thing with him is just that mental toughness piece of it. Like, you know, just callous your mind, like get your mind hard, you know, and I think honestly that the only way to do that is to lose, is to strike out when your dad's there, is to have those shitty situations, you know, unfortunately your dad passing or death in the family, or you get cut from a team, or, you know, you get dropped to the 4th line. Like, okay, how am I going to get to that 2nd line? How am I going to get back up there? What am I going to do? And like, you know, work hard instead of, oh, it's that fault, it's his fault, it's this person, you know, just no, figure it out.
Blame, complain, defend.
Yeah. And I can't stand excuses. Like I really can't, you know. There's a lot of times where, yeah, I could be maybe blamed on somebody else, but you know what? I got to own that because that was probably my fault, you know? Amazing. And I think that ownership part, that, you know, being accountable is a big piece, man. And we had my little guy's team, I had the whole team, man. I'm like, you guys know what accountable means. Like, obviously some of them do, some of them don't, which is totally fine. And that's why I asked the question, but I'm like, it's owning it. Like, you mess up, you own it. And that's okay. Like, we all mess up, you know, but teaching young kids at young ages that I punched the hole in the wall, I threw my stick through the wall. Like, how many kids are going to lie about that? Most kids will, because they don't want to get in trouble. But no, it's okay. You tell me, we'll fix it. I'll help you fix it. We'll fix it. You know, it's not a big deal. We all did dumb stuff, you know. And as a coach, understanding that too, where I kicked a hole in the wall one time. Like, we all did dumb stuff. You know, it's okay. We can get through it, but just don't lie to me. Just be accountable. Just own it. You know, and I think those are kind of big things, right?
Wow. Another show that I don't want to end. Let's just keep rolling.
Man.
Keep rolling. Man. GG, anything else?
No, it
for
was
Dwayne?
fun, man. It was good.
No, take her home, man. Take her home.
All right. Well, that does it for this episode of Benchmarked. Thanks for listening. Until next time,
keep crushing it.
Ball game.